Okay, hello everybody. We're back to the format where I show you some charts, and today I'm going to be talking about the chart and the prospects for the United Kingdom this year, with a particular emphasis on Prince William, King Charles, Princess Kate, and also the general election. And yeah, so let's get stuck right into it. Okay, so here we go. First of all, we've got the chart for the United Kingdom, which you can see. Ooh, I don't know which one you can see there. Hold on. Just make sure I get up the right page. Okay, right. So what I'm mainly looking at is here we have Jupiter, which is in 1 degree and 51 minutes of Leo. Okay, Leo being the sign of royalty. Jupiter is associated with royalty, and of course, the 10th house is the power elite, the ruling elite of a country. So, what a wonderful placement for a country in which royalty are so much part of the culture and the public perception of the country. What's very, very interesting is Pluto, which is currently right here in the first degrees of Aquarius, will be opposing Jupiter during this year. Important dates: March the 31st, which is Easter Sunday, when it's opposing exactly at 1 degrees 51. Another important date is the 5th and 6th of June, because it goes retrograde, so it will again be opposing Jupiter on those days, and January next year. What am I thinking? I'm thinking there could be an announcement on March the 31st to the effect that Charles is abdicating on health grounds, that he's stepping down, or maybe it'll be something like William is going to be taking up more and more of Charles's roles. Something like that. Could even be that he passes away at that time, but I think that's a bit too soon. With regard to the timing of his diagnosis, I don't think they tell the public at all unless it was pretty serious, because usually I'm sure these health issues are dealt with in private. So the fact that they had to mention it means the public is being readied for something. I know a lot of people speculate that it might be in order to promote mRNA vaccines for cancer as well, and treatments, blah, blah, blah. I don't think in this case that is, but might be a byproduct of. Now, when Pluto's opposite Jupiter during the June time, that could be the installation of the new Starmer government, because also Jupiter being in the 10th house is also about the government. So it could well have connotations if that's the time when either general election has taken place, the new government comes in, or when there is a general election, but we're already anticipating that's going to happen, and we're pretty sure that it's going to be the Starmer coming in. He was part of the Council of Foreign Relations. He's been in prime position for a very, very long time, and it's going to be devastating. But enough of that. We'll come back to that again later. Then I would say that King Charles will definitely not be on the throne by January next year, when we have the final Pluto transit to that Jupiter position. To reinforce what I'm saying, let's have a look at the charts of William, because it's also interesting. Here we go, William of Wales. Quite flattering picture of him, I'd say. Here comes his chart. Now, as you can see, we were just talking about 1 degree 51 of Leo. Here is his midheaven on 2 degrees 26 of Scorpio, which means that the Pluto transit is squaring his midheaven, and also Jupiter, which is directly on his midheaven at 0 degrees 29 of Scorpio. So during the time when, from the point of view of the country, Jupiter is Pluto, the planet of change, is triggering Jupiter, we also have Pluto triggering Prince William's MC, representing his destiny, a leadership role, Jupiter representing loyalty, prestige, a lot of this whole ceremonial things going on, the sort of religious and church aspect of a coronation. So that does seem to signify that King William taking the throne is not very far away at all. Although what's also interesting to note is that his rising is 27 degrees 28 of Sagittarius, with Neptune quite close to the ascendant. That is opposite his sun, which is on 0 degrees of Cancer. So his sun is directly on his descendant, not far from his moon on descendant. And as I say, Neptune conjunct his ascendant. And what is happening? Well, Neptune is moving to square that position and will be for a long time. So Neptune, when it's here on sort of 29 degrees of Pisces, as it will be this year, and then next year as it goes into Aries, is going to be continually squaring his ascendant, which is already afflicted by Neptune, squaring his sun and also his moon, which says to me that the reign of William is going to be troubled. It'll be an inauspicious start. There'll be a lot of angst connected to it. He won't really adapt to the role. Perhaps he won't really take to the public, or maybe there'll be other issues to do with health that mean that he won't serve for long, maybe even mental health that mean he doesn't serve for long. And as you know, 2026, I always had this image of a child being on the throne, simply because whenever Neptune has been in Aries, there have been children on the throne throughout history in England, France, even Japan. So it's been quite a theme as Neptune enters the first of degrees of Aries to have children on a throne somewhere. Yeah, I can imagine there'll be some jokes about that. Let's look at Kate's chart as well. Here's Catherine, Princess of Wales, who's Capricorn, of course, born on the 9th of Jan. Here's her chart. She's got Leo rising. Now, interestingly, she entered hospital at the beginning of the year. Jupiter was at Uranus was at a station on 19 degrees of Taurus, which is directly squaring her ascendant, which is 20 degrees of Leo. So it was within a degree of squaring her ascendant. Ascendant is issues to do with health. Uranus can indicate a health issue. However, it's usually a sudden health issue, and they said this was all pre-planned, right? I'll mention why I think it was sudden. Now, she's got Leo rising. Her sun in Capricorn is very close to the cusp of the 6th house of health, and her 6th house of health is ruled by Capricorn. This does indicate that her health issues are often to do with the bones, because Saturn is in, because Sagittarius was also, I can't remember why Sagittarius was important to this health issue. Please forgive me while I consider that for a second. Okay, let me carry on. So so her health issues are often to do with things related to bones, the teeth. Okay, also perhaps the lower leg or the Achilles. So I'm wondering if this isn't actually a hysterectomy. It's more to do with something else, maybe not a broken bone, but I'm not sure, you guys can give your feedback on this, but being someone who's always been extremely thin, obviously has to do a lot of dieting and working out to maintain her physique. Could it possibly be the case that her bones are a little bit brittle because of constant dieting, and there's an issue with a hip transplant? You know, she's always got to wear these high heels. It's a very demanding job. So I'm just wondering, there's also a possibility it's an issue with gallbladder with that particular placement. But what I would say, why the suddenness, is look what was going on in January. Jupiter was at a station at it's around 5-6 degrees of Taurus. And what she got here, her midheaven is 5 degrees, 19 minutes of Taurus. So Jupiter was exactly on her midheaven. And when was Jupiter last on her midheaven? Just after her marriage to William in 2011. Jupiter spent a lot of time in 2011 crossing that point, and that was when she was newly married into the royal family, being, paraded around, given all the lessons, learning all the ropes, going on royal tours. It was the first sort of honeymoon period for her as a royal, because she'd married William. Now, 12 years later, beginning of this year, Jupiter is at a station there. I think she got the nod beginning of this year, that it's highly likely she'll become queen during this year. Therefore, she needs to get all her medical stuff out the way, because it's going to be extremely hectic. So if she wants any tucks, any facelifts, any hip operations, any Achilles operations, anything like that sorted, she needed to get it done, have a good rest up, possibly a holiday and a break before everything kind of kicks off. I think we'll see Kate back on the scene mid-March, March the 13th, before the Ides of March. Those are some of my ideas of what might be happening with the royals, and some of my ideas on Kate, obviously. If anyone's watching who's not happy with me speculating, it's purely astrological, and I've given my reasons. So as I say, as for abdominal hysterectomy, not particularly seeing that strongly reflected in the chart, right? But as I say, could be possibly gallbladder or something of that nature. Could even be vascular. I don't think she's got varicose veins, so we'll leave that one out and go for bones, hips, something like that. Perhaps with a little bit of facelift, because there we have Mercury and a Venus conjunct in a sixth house. Now, I mean, I don't think that's controversial at all. People have these things all the time. Facial enhancement, blah blah blah. It's not a biggie, right? People do it. Whatever. People in the public eye do it. It's going to happen. Let's get back to the UK chart because there's something else interesting I want to say. Now, during 1984, Pluto was in the first degrees of Scorpio over here, and it squared up to Jupiter. And what happened that year? It's very significant. Let's pay attention. Not only was there the drama at the Iranian embassy where a cop, Yvonne Fletcher, was shot. A lot of people say false flag. All right. But more significantly, the IRA attempted to assassinate the Conservative cabinet at the Brighton Hotel bombing. Margaret Thatcher escaped unharmed. MP Anthony Berry and 4 other people were killed, and Norman Tebbit was trapped among the rubble, and his wife Margaret was seriously injured. So major terror attack, or maybe people could say it was false flag. I don't know that about that one. Let's just go on what they're saying. Major terror attack, and there was also the major incident at the Iranian embassy, which people still talk about, but obviously the more important one for our purposes is this terror attack. So are we going to see this year some sort of either real or false flag terror attack against the British people? They'll say, well, it's pro-Palestinian protesters, and then that will aid the media and politicians' kind of aims when it comes to the demonization of the Palestinian protesters. Now, you guys may know this weekend, Tower Bridge was shut down because there were pro-Palestine protesters, and everyone was saying, "Oh, it was a hate march," and there was a big hubba lubba about it. But really, it was peaceful. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, Just Stop Oil always closing off bridges and carrying on, and they do it on a weekday, not on a Saturday afternoon. But of course, far too much was made of it. So I can honestly see that something like that is very likely. So we're looking for announcement to do with King Charles abdicating, or his health, passing it over to William, and within a year, William becoming king. And yeah, so there we go. So that's my prediction there. Yes, it's going to be Starmer as Prime Minister. That's why everything in the press is gearing up people to dislike Sunak, etc. Now, I would like to make another point here. You know, we have these people like John Campbell, Dr. Nurse, John Campbell, Russell Brand, and all the other people who've now come out and are talking about, you know, the COVID era narrative and talking about vaccines. Bob Moran was making, the cartoonist guy, was making a really good point. Now, it is rather galling to see these people who were on the totally wrong side for a long time now leading the truther movement, especially because people like Dr. Nurse John Campbell made millions out of pushing the fear narrative, the lockdown narrative, the stay at home, stay safe narrative, the wear your mask narrative, and finally the vaccines. Made millions out of it. Oh, but now he's talking about various, right, clots. I don't know what you're allowed to talk about on YouTube. You know what he's talking about, right? Like Bob Moran is saying, forget this business. There was plenty going on before that. People were being told to stay in their homes and not come out. People were being brutalized by police in Australia, New Zealand, other areas of the world too, like in Europe. In some cases, people were not able to see dying relatives. People were stuck in old age homes, deprived of all their loved ones. Sometimes parents were not allowed to go into a hospital to be with a severely sick child because of COVID. We had situations where the police in Derbyshire dyed a lake black to encourage people from taking a walk in nature because we were encouraged to be so terrified of this. In some countries, people needed to print out a permit to go out for 1 hour a day. In Melbourne, people were fined for going out for more than 1 hour a day. They had drones flying around to check up on people. You know, it was particularly brutal in Australia and New Zealand, the way people were treated. This is long before this. There were other egregious human rights breaches that everyone should have been concerned about. Jem O'Doherty and John Waters took the Irish government to court complaining about breaches of constitutional rights. People were being stopped in Ireland from travelling 5 miles from their home. There was the issue of people being fired afterwards because they refused to take that, right? That's an egregious breach of human rights. And yet, where was Russell Brand? Where were all these people who are talking out now? You know their names. Brett, someone who's emerged. Never heard of him in my life. Suddenly he's everywhere. Rogan and Alex Jones, everyone can't get enough of the guy. Well, he was nowhere. Where was their judgment then? They weren't saying anything for a long, long, long time. Shows their judgment is rubbish. Shows they don't really care. They stayed silent when there were human rights breaches long before this. So forget about that. It's not even, there was lots else going on that you needed to talk up and notice and be alarmed at. And the level of propaganda, the level of fear mongering, the level of exaggeration, there was plenty to be upset about. And now, they go on, and Alex Jones so happy to have Russell Brand on. Why? What did he say? Late to the party, no excuse. No excuse. So I just thought Bob Moran was mentioning that. It's a great point. I hope you've enjoyed this recording. And I think it's, look, I haven't messed around. It's punchy. I got to the point. And I'm sure you will enjoy it. But yeah, Starmer, that's going to be a shock. And oh, yes, one more thing. I did have up the ingress chart. I just must show you the ingress chart for the UK because it's rather interesting. There you go. Here it is. Hold on, I'm going to come at you now. Yeah, so I wanted to show you the UK's ingress chart for April this year. Well, not April, it's the Aries ingress chart. So it's actually for the 19th of March because I thought that would be interesting. But before we do, also remembered that I wanted to mention that when it comes to the UK chart, remember I was talking about periods when Pluto had triggered Jupiter in the first sort of 1 degree or so of Leo. Well, another time was during 1940. So obviously World War II was hot in progress. And as I've talked about in my other recent presentations, there are so many planetary transits, particularly the position of Neptune, which is directly 180 degrees since that time. Also, the triggering of 27 degrees of Taurus and therefore Algol, which is being done by Uranus at a station very similar to 1941. That's why I also think the war agenda in Ukraine is absolutely going to hot up. And we can see that's happening because they're sending over weapons. Sending long-range missiles to Zelensky that he'll be able to use to aid at Russian territory. There's no sense of these people wanting to get a perspective and back down. They want to push this thing on and on. Okay. Another time, very apropos, that Jupiter was triggering Pluto, should I say, was triggering Jupiter at this position, was when Pluto was in the first degrees of Taurus. That was in 1855 at the time of the Crimean War. And interestingly, that year there was a vote of no confidence in the government. So it also gives you a sense of this political instability, which is interesting because now we're going to look at the ingress chart. I hope you can see it well there. So that's timed for the exact moment the sun enters Aries, time for London, and that gives us a gist of what could be happening in the area of the United Kingdom. Now, what you always look for in these ingress charts are tight aspects to angles. You're not so interested really in the planetary aspects themselves because they would be shared by all countries, so they're more useful in a global perspective. But what I'm immediately noticing is the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, not exact yet, but that is in the business of becoming within orb, is directly on the IC of the UK there in Taurus. And the ascendant in Capricorn is rather relevant because the ascendant is conjunct the natal IC. So again, the IC of the natal chart is emphasized. You'll see that because you can see ascendant of this ingress chart is 11 degrees Capricorn, and in the natal chart, there you go, the IC is 11 degrees of Capricorn, and so is the sun, 10 degrees 10 minutes of Capricorn. So this is extremely significant year for the UK because the ingress chart is triggering both the sun and the IC of this chart, of the natal chart. Plus, we have this really important Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on the IC. I think there's something else important, and that is Saturn. Yeah, what I think is also important is the Jupiter Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is triggering Saturn, which is at about 23, what is it exactly? 23 degrees, 22 minutes of Leo. So the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus will be triggering Saturn in the natal chart, which also, again, rules the IC. So it keeps telling us about the IC. And what's that? It's the people, it's the opposition party, it's also the weather, and it's also property. So these are key areas of flux, change, and upheaval for the UK. What I think it means with Jupiter being emphasized on the IC is issues to do with the royal family. Also, with the respect of Scorpio, right up there, is on the midheaven representing rulership. So big changes in the rulership structure, like what I say, Labour coming in, just really communism coming in, and Prince William coming in. Jupiter emphasizes that royal issues will come to the fore. Uranus is interesting. It's all about strikes, revolt, rebellion, uprising, feeling of discontent, the people versus the power structure. So I think that what could be happening is a lot of people are still pretty asleep. They're going to vote for Labour because they want to get rid of the Tories. I mean, it's so stupid. It's this Punch and Judy contest, 1 minute Punch is on top and they're pulling for Judy, then Judy's on top, and people don't get it. Nothing changes. Blair, Cameron, no difference, I mean, since for a long time there's no difference. But some people are still under the illusion that they're gonna, punish the what. You're not punishing them. They're having a wonderful life, don't worry. They only just become MPs so they can do lots of favours to big business and then go and get wonderful positions on board of directors. It's not punishing them, believe me. But a lot of people think that. However, the big kicker is going to come when Starmer gets in and people face the ugly reality of what that's going to mean. And that's, woke on steroids, net zero on steroids, free speech decimation. I mean, you name it, it's going to be happening. Was hearing from a friend today who said her mom was on the phone upset that they're going to be looking into pensioners' bank accounts to see if they're getting any money that's not being taxed. I mean, yeah, come on, guys, let's attack the most vulnerable in society. People who are probably suffering ill health and frailty, all alone, probably already, cash strapped. They've only just worked all their life and paid taxes all their life and paid VAT all their life and given their life to this country. Let's go and attack them now because we're really keen to send more money to Zelensky as part of this money laundering scheme to pump up the defense industry and whatever else is going on. You can imagine. It's going to get nasty because there's no money. Councils are bankrupt, council tax going through the roof. As I say, the IC is property. So they're definitely going to be coming after property rights, never mind punishing car owners, property owners as well, second homes, all those things. You can imagine Labour, because, they've got a certain constituency who going to think, why should they have a second home? This sort of thing. And it's going to be really nasty, but it is going to wake a lot more people up. And when I say the IC and Uranus on the IC is about the strength of the opposition party, I don't think that's anything to do with Labour versus the Tories. It's the fact that people are in opposition to all of them. And as we saw in the local by-election, the biggest winner was people who didn't turn up. Over 60% of people didn't bother to vote because they know it doesn't change anything. It's useless. It's a waste of their time. They hate all the candidates. I do think that this whole, I know a lot of the pro-Palestinian supporters, people are saying, oh, well, they won't vote for Labour because Labour are just another Zionist party and they haven't been strong enough in condemning what's going on and supporting Gaza, so they'll lose a lot of vote. Probably won't. I don't think it will. I think people will go and vote for them. But when the changes come in, a lot of people are going to be really, really angry. And that's why I think this is going to be a massive time for the UK of waking up. Because we're going to be on the front edge of what it really means to go into the Great Reset. Huge restrictions, probably higher energy costs, absolutely hammering the consumer, social engineering on steroids, everything like that. And it will wake people up. So it's a key year for the UK in terms of royalty. Definitely issues to do with property. And another big thing, Jupiter represents the weather. And the fourth house, cusp of the fourth house, the IC that I keep going on about, represents weather. So I wonder if we are going to have extreme flooding, earthquake, I don't know, whatever they can throw at us, some sort of extreme events with the weather. But I do think a lot of the strikes we've been seeing will stop when Labour come in. But, I think general discontent, fury at the ruling class, and frustration, it's going to get to fever pitch, bubble over, and who knows where that'll take us, maybe to some real change. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this reading for the UK. I'm doing one for America as well, but this kind of was a biggie. Lots of things to say, lots of things that I'm sure you'll all be interested in. I see at the moment when I record these, they go over to my BitChute channel. Don't know how that's happening, but great. So give people a chance to watch them over there as well. I don't think I can monetize this. Maybe I can. Who knows? But I don't generally monetize, so hopefully you're not seeing adverts because I'm not monetizing. Take care, everybody, and yeah. Unless anything major happens, I will try and get to some of the chart readings that I know you've been asking me about on a personal level, and then I'll get back to you. But anyway, take care. Have a great week.